This is Inside Story, the only show about the system by people who lived it. I'm Lawrence Bartley.
Maybe make some kind of system where we can help people with addiction a little bit more.
The death of my child was the hardest thing that I will ever have to deal with.
The war on drugs, it's a more sophisticated way of subjugating the people you don't like in your society.
I'm the first one in Washington State that has been in prison and then was elected to a state office. I never really thought that was even possible.
Talking about the U.S. prison system as a whole can be challenging. Each state has its own approach to managing prisons and its own set of laws to can land people there. In Oklahoma, prosecutors can turn one of the darkest days in a mother's life into a prison term.
My name is Cherry Mason. I am currently serving a 12-year sentence in Oklahoma for first-degree manslaughter. I was originally charged with first-degree murder after I gave birth to a stillborn, 2017 in Murray County, Oklahoma. Here's a little of my story. I'm 44 years old. I have 4 daughters. I have struggled with addiction most of my life. When I found out I was pregnant with the baby I'm here for, I was a 38-year-old homeless drug addict without anyone to turn to. I'd never do anything to intentionally harm my children. I will probably never be able to speak to my youngest girls because of the way the process portrayed me. I'm missing everything. I will be in prison until April 13th, 2028. I will be 50 years old when I am released.
This letter is Cherry Mason's last chance at an early release from prison, where she has been for 5 years since pleading guilty to manslaughter for the stillbirth of her daughter, Katie. She sent this letter to her oldest daughter, Tiffany, in hopes of finding a lawyer to help her case.
It's a family picture from when I was really little. The picture's so worn out and old. The frame's messed up.
It's a great picture.
And
is that you?
That's me, my mom, my dad, Debbie.
This is your mom?
Yep.
God, so she was probably only 16 in that photo?
Probably, yeah.
She looks so young.
Yeah, she looks that young.
Y'all really do look alike,
Yeah, I get told that all the time. You look just like your mom.
Cherry is one of dozens of women in Oklahoma who've been prosecuted for testing positive for drugs after a miscarriage or stillbirth.
I made a records request in Oklahoma for medical examiner data to get all of the data about the different stillbirths that were autopsied since 2015. We realized it wasn't just happening in Oklahoma, it was happening in Alabama, South Carolina, but also other states. When we started looking and we started categorizing the cases this way and going back to 1999, we found more than 50 cases altogether. And from what we're looking at, depending on the county, they're seeking even longer and longer sentences on these women.
A handful of prosecutors have brought nearly all of the cases in Oklahoma, most of them in rural counties.
This is a free call from Cherry Mason, an incarcerated individual at Dr. Eddie Warrior Correctional Center.
What did you feel like your options were when you found out you were pregnant and you were still struggling with your addiction?
I didn't feel like I had any options, none at all. And I was in a really bad place in my life when I found out I was pregnant with Katie. And we were homeless. We literally lived in the woods, you know, in like a tent, completely strung out on drugs, almost as bad as it can get. That's how bad it was. But I was very happy. I was really scared, but I felt like this was going to be my new reason to live. And I've been through a lot of stuff in my life, but the death of my child was the hardest thing that I will ever have to deal with.
It wasn't until a year after the stillbirth that Cherry found out that she had been charged with murder when she heard about it on TV.
A Murray County woman is headed to prison after admitting to using meth while she was pregnant and killing her baby.
Why did you decide to plead guilty?
I didn't plead guilty because I felt like I was guilty of what they were accusing me of. I pled guilty because I knew the way that it works here in Oklahoma, and if you take it to trial, especially in a small town like that, they're going to find you guilty.
Prosecutors who bring these charges say they see it as a deterrent, that it stops the cycle, as one Oklahoma DA told us. For those whose mothers have been put in prison, that reasoning falls flat.
It was up to the DA, and he basically said they're making an example out of her. I actually said my mom's more than an example. Like, we need her here. If you want to get to the core of the problem, maybe make some kind of system to where we can help people with addiction a little bit more. Sometimes I really don't think that's what they want, though. I don't think they want to help people with addiction. I think they just want to make the people with addiction go away.
A group of Oklahoma doctors denounced prosecutions like Cherry's as harmful, writing in a public letter that prosecutors are ignoring medical science. There isn't scientific proof that using meth causes pregnancy loss, and the claim that it does is rarely scrutinized in court because most women, like Cherry, accept plea deals. Defense attorney Jackie Ford has seen an uptick in cases like these in recent years.
We looked at cases in Oklahoma, Alabama, South Carolina, and the vast majority, most never went to trial. Has the evidence really been put on trial?
Sure. So I don't think we've seen enough evidence put on trial in Oklahoma to even have an even elementary conversation about whether or not we're doing this right. I think that they're trying to encourage women to make better choices so they become better moms. What they're failing to acknowledge in that is that we are stigmatizing further substance abuse disorder. We fail to offer services to families and children to stop the cycle of addiction, to stop the cycle of abuse, and then we just continue to prosecute them.
What options are there in Oklahoma for pregnant women who are addicted to drugs?
There is no safe place in Oklahoma for a pregnant woman who is struggling with substance abuse disorder.
Earlier this year, courts made it harder to convict women on charges of manslaughter or murder in cases of pregnancy loss. But that hasn't stopped prosecutors. Instead, some are opting to charge the women with child neglect, which isn't as difficult to prove under the law, and it also carries up to a life sentence.
People make a lot of judgments based on your situation and your charge, but what would you want people to know about you?
That I'm somebody's mom, I'm somebody's daughter, I'm somebody's grandma.
Cherry has at least 5 more years before she might become eligible for parole.
So, what's been going down?
I've got some pictures to send you, and I got the envelope that you sent me.
Oh, you're gonna love it. It's gorgeous. And it's a cat lady, just like you are. So, everybody's seen your picture. Everybody here with your, I show all my pictures that I get off. So you guys are all kind of famous.
Yeah, it makes me feel pretty great. I think I have a hard time feeling important sometimes. So I
know.
But
you are important.
Thank you. You're important too. I wish that we were the type of people that could have afforded a real lawyer.
So you think if she'd had money, she'd been able to get a really good attorney?
If she had money, I really feel like she wouldn't still be in there.
What would it mean to you if your mom got out?
It just mean the world to me, just to have her around. I want her to come live near us. I've had so many big things happen. I haven't had my mom there with me.
Well, kiddo, I love you so much, and I'm glad everything's going okay.
I love you too. I miss you.
I miss you too. Well, maybe you guys can come and see me here pretty soon.
That would be nice.
All right. I love you, babe.
I love you too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
The caller has hung up.
The CDC has started doing something it hasn't done in decades, releasing research on gun violence. At this point, it's mostly just breaking down data, like the spike in gun violence from 2019 to 2020, though bigger studies are expected. But this is the first CDC-funded research on guns since 1996.
Acknowledging the 37,000 firearm deaths each year is not political posturing. It is recognizing that firearms pose a major threat to health.
When an amendment blocked the use of federal funds to, quote, advocate or promote gun control. Overdose is a leading cause of death in prison. Deaths from drugs or alcohol in state prisons went up 600%. Between 2001 and 2018. While overdoses have gone up in the U.S. overall, drug use in prison is more common and more dangerous. Because of factors like subpar healthcare and how often people are alone. As climate change leads to higher temperatures, people who are incarcerated are uniquely vulnerable. Poor airflow, no AC, little to no insulation, and high commissary prices for things like fans and towels mean people are spending too much time in temperatures above 95 degrees. That's the point scientists say bodies can't cool themselves effectively.
Dr. Carl Hart is one of the world's leading experts on drugs, how they can be used safely, and how drug policies impact lives. He's a neuroscientist, psychologist, and a professor at Columbia University. You might not remember this, but I met you before.
Okay.
You were in Sing Sing Correctional Facility. You were teaching a college course, and it was your first day.
Oh, damn.
What did you teach in Sing Sing?
Drugs and behavior and behavioral neuroscience.
So, do you still teach?
No, I won't go back in and teach, no.
Why not?
One of the things we do when we teach in those spaces, our society, it allows us to feel good about ourselves, our society, and not really have to face the horror of us warehousing all these people. And then so if anybody's really thinking, you know, that messes people up. It certainly messed me up, discussing all these grand ideas, and then knowing that people have to go back to be treated like enslaved people.
Do you think college and prison should persist?
Yeah, I think it should, because there are people who are benefiting. But in terms of my sort of going back, I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle the cognitive dissonance that it caused me, knowing that we're not really facing the real issue at hand.
Understood. So you study the use of drugs. You're a college professor. Can you tell me your path to where you are now?
Sure. I started studying drugs because I wanted to help cure drug addiction. I thought crack addiction was the source of the problems in my community. Then over the course of this 30-year career, I learned that drugs aren't the problem, really. The problems are still the basic things that we know. Make sure people are employed, make sure people are educated, make sure people have health insurance, make sure people are taken care of. Drugs aren't the problem, because far more people use drugs without problem.
Are you saying there's more people who use crack responsibly than people who abused it?
Yeah, great question. So when you think about the people who are addicted to the drug, we'll just use that as the measure of people having problems.
Right.
So about 20% of the people who use crack will become addicted. And then that means that 80% or so will not become addicted. So the vast majority won't become addicted. That's the case with all drugs. And these numbers have been collected for years. And this is not to minimize addiction, because addiction, of course, is a real problem that many people need help with. But we deal with this rationally when it comes to something like alcohol. We make sure people get the help they need, but we don't vilify the people who are using alcohol and they're using it safely, and we don't talk about incarcerating them while they're using alcohol safely without problems.
The reason why that doesn't happen is because alcohol is legal. So are you saying the same thing will happen with marijuana usage?
Yeah. There was a time in the 1930s when we said that people who use cannabis will eventually start using heroin and then kill their mother. And people believed that at the time. And so society views changes on these drugs. And one of the things that is one of the big factors is the numbers of people who use the drug. As that number increases, it becomes more difficult to lie or make these exaggerations up about a drug. So as more people have been using cannabis, you can no longer say that cannabis is going to lead to you killing your mother, because people will look at you like you're crazy. But you can still say that about methamphetamine today or something like that. You can still say some horrible things about heroin today because fewer people use those drugs.
So do you think racism plays a part in where drugs are perceived?
I think racism does. I think classism does. I think wide range of factors. So if we think about crack, in our society's mind, crack is associated with the black user. If we think about methamphetamine, in our society's mind, that drug is associated with poor white people or gay white guys in our society's mind. And I think the negative perspectives that those drugs may have, or the negative perceptions related to those drugs, are related to the people who are perceived to be the users.
Who benefits economically from drug use in our society?
People who are in the illicit trade, they benefit because you buy drugs. That's the one that everybody sees. But what people don't think of is that law enforcement really benefits, because the war on drugs, the $40 billion a year, pays the salaries of a lot of people. And so the war on drugs become, in effect, a jobs program. But it's a jobs program that's predicated on the subjugation of bodies like yours and mine, black and brown bodies. That's the problem. So it's like a new way of slavery. It's a more sophisticated way of subjugating the people you don't like in your society. I think all drug possession shouldn't be a crime. No one should be going to jail for possessing any drug. If we think about what we promise people in the country, we say that you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If people are using a drug in their pursuit of happiness, and they're not bothering anyone, not preventing other people from doing the same, why do we care?
A criminal record is something that can follow you around forever, but that doesn't have to stop you from doing some incredible things. This is In the Spotlight.
My name is Representative Tarra Simmons, and I am a member of the Washington State Legislature in the House of Representatives. The last time I was incarcerated, I was sentenced to 30 months, and I did 20 months inside the prison. I became involved in the system the first time when I was a child for stealing food, because my father would sell our food stamps to support his crack addiction. Everything just kind of went bad after that. I was always struggling with addiction and homelessness and poverty. When I got out of prison, I realized that it was really hard to find a job because of my criminal record, and it was really hard to find housing. And so I decided to go to law school to figure out how to change the system. Here's my Dean's Medal. I got the Dean's Medal when I graduated from law school. I at first wasn't allowed to take the Washington State bar exam because of my past criminal record, and I appealed that case to the Washington State Supreme Court and was really surprised when I won in a unanimous same-day decision.
If rehabilitation is the touchstone of present character, her record of rehabilitation makes this an easy case for the court.
All 9 justices from different political ideologies agreed that I had the character and fitness to become a lawyer. So it was a sweet form of justice. The times that I spent incarcerated, really helped me define, I guess, my own resilience, because there's no further down in the world that you can go than to be incarcerated. And you either have 2 choices, to give up or to find hope. There's Davon. He was 18 years old when I went to prison, and Dominic was 8 years old. I'm the first one in Washington State that has been in prison and then was elected to a state office. My experiences really help inform my policy decisions and the issues that I take up and champion in the legislature. My first term was really great. I think my colleagues have said I was uniquely effective because I passed 6 pieces of legislation. My freshman bill actually restored the right to vote for all people as soon as they leave prison.
We're here today for House Bill 1078. I'd like to thank the sponsors Representative Simmons and the companion sponsor, Senator Cooter.
If you're watching this and you're currently incarcerated, I just want you to know that your life is not over. There are so many people out here, your brothers and sisters, who are waiting for you. We have created many places where you can connect when you come home, to be part of the movement, to get out of the circumstances and to actually have a real chance at life. I never in a million years believed or could even dream that I would be where I am today. When I think about my 12-year-old self growing up in the hood and navigating the poverty and violence of that environment, or when I think about myself cycling in and out of juvenile justice, jail, and prison, I just have to pinch myself daily because I'm a lawyer, I'm a legislator, and I'm a great mom. And I never really thought that was even possible.
When I think about the themes of drugs and addiction in this episode, I think of a guy I got to know during my time in prison. He was a former athlete, and before he got arrested, he was one of the best. On the inside, he soon became a kind of a leader and a mentor to the other men. We were all inspired by his discipline and focus, the way he carried himself every single day. To me, he was a brother. After nearly 3 decades of incarceration, he was introduced to fentanyl. It crushed his aura. Young people who met him later knew nothing of the pride and dignity he once carried. They only saw a shell of a man, a zombie. Hearing that broke my heart, and it drove home just how dehumanizing it is to us all when we treat people like nothing more than addicts or criminals. It's time we changed all that. Instead of vilifying, let's assist. Lend a helping hand to someone who's struggling with addiction. See them, not your condemnation. And let's change the way we talk about people who are stuck on drugs. If we can do that, maybe one day the justice system will catch up. Thank you for watching.